Photon Blast in the Devices tree, the infamous finisher. By finisher, I mean it is a ability that you cast on a player or an NPC when their health is at 35% health or below, and you deal a significant amount of damage to them. This is what it looks like. This power, because it's at the bottom of the tree, is among your most pricey ones. It costs 1,113, which is the same as Napalm EMP. This power is vulnerable to interrupt. So as you channel it, if a player or an NPC lunges you, you'll give them blue immunity. You'll be countered and you'll fall down. There is a hand mod that you can use from the Home Turf lair vendor, and it can prevent you from getting countered. That only works in PvE instances. It also increases your defense and your toughness by a certain amount. This power is 25 meters far range. Crosshairs are red, and I deal damage. Of course, you could stay a foot back, however you cannot get too far out or you won't deal anything. And that applies to both controller roll and damage roll, as well as the fact that this is a single target power in both stances. In controller roll, this power stuns one target twice. So as you continue to, you'll get a stun somewhere within the first 2 ticks, and then towards the end of the channel you'll get another stun, only on one target. This power in controller stance, it's not a debuff. It has nothing to do with power healing. It doesn't inflict any power interaction, so you can't use it with the advanced mechanic. This power is a channeling beam, just a channel beam attack. Unlike Fear Gas, which is another channeling attack, it's a channeling damage over time, so that if you jump cancel it, you reduce the damage over time takes being dealt to a target. With Photon Blast, although you don't see the animation of you jumping, I'll press it right now, which is my L2 square. I'll hit X, which is my jump button. You won't see my character jump, but you'll see that the damage stopped. That's because I just jump canceled it. And when you jump cancel a channel beam attack like Photon Blast, you completely end the damage. And I'll show that now. And I'm trying to jump canceling it at different amounts. There you saw it should be 5 ticks. Some I jumped at 2. So it varies depending on where you jump cancel it. That is where you cut off the rest of the damage. Now this is the problem if you use this if you jump cancel it too early. And I'll get into the amount of ticks. It deals 6 ticks of damage. 4 ticks, 4 of them. Tick number 1, tick number 2, 3, and 5 are your low hitters. They should hit for a range with my current CR of 145, my might amount of 12k, my max damage home turf mod, my core strength is on, so is my escalating might. And this sparring target has a CR of 126, so I'm going to deal a significant amount of damage to it. So these numbers are inflated. I'm not going to get into base. If you want to look at base numbers, which means 0 might, which you can compare with other powers, you could definitely visit my gadgets thread at the Dcuo forums. But just for video purposes, I'm going by the numbers here. Ticks number 1, 2, 3, and 5 should hit for a range of 500 to 700. And ticks number 4 and 6 should hit for a range of, I think around maybe 1900, maybe 2500, around that range. Of course, I'm excluding crits. So here you're seeing some crits, which I don't want to demonstrate, but actually we got a good sample there. If you look at that 2244 and that 2151, those are ticks 4 and 6. 2151 is tick number 4, 2244 is tick number 6. Those are your big ticks. What you do is, if you wanted to compare it to a finisher like atomics or fires or ices, you take Photon Blast 2 big ticks and you combine that damage. You add them together. That equals 1 tick in their finisher. Now, those other finishers that have 2 ticks only, the first tick is very low damage. The second tick is a big, huge hit. That big, huge hit, you take our 2 big hits, ticks 4 and 6, and you add them up, and that's essentially that damage from those finishers. Ours is just split up. Now, ticks 1, 2, 3, and 5 is just essentially penny damage. They're just there to make the this power unique. So they're dealing additional damage. However, it's nowhere near the damage of the big hit, and this also is factored in when we talk about targets on 35% health or below. When you're attacking a sparring target, whether you're at 25 meters or up in their face or mid-range, when their health is 36% or higher, your damage is going to be the same, coming from Photon Blast. And if the damage is dealt over 3 seconds with this channeling, that's 3 seconds of channeling, and within these 3 seconds you're dealing about the damage of slightly under something like Stasis Field. And Stasis Field is delivering its damage over 8 seconds. 7 DOTs plus an initial hit. So this damage above 35% health on NPCs over 3 seconds is slightly under Stasis Field's total damage. Once this target reaches 35% or below, this finisher, the damage completely changes. Ticks number 1, 2, 3, and 5 deal slightly more damage. It's still pretty weak. It's still penny damage. I doubt I'll get to it on this sparring target here. It might take a while, and that's not really something that I'm gonna end up doing here. Let me see if I can drop an orbital. And a trinket. And I'll just keep channeling. What I want to do is get to 35% health and show you. Although normally it's going to take a lot longer to show you the rest of it, but what I want to get at here is that, again, ticks 1, 2, 3, and 5, their damage will increase slightly. However, ticks 4 and 6, the big hitters, that's when you start to see their damage. And that one varies on your range. So ticks 1, 2, 3, and 5, when you're at 35% health or below on a target, it doesn't matter where your range is at, where you're standing, that damage will be the same. However, ticks 4 and 6, that damage again will vary. If you are at 25 meters, my crosshairs are red, and I'm back here, the damage I deal with Photon Blast will be it'll be about the total damage of Stasis Field. if you take stasis field total damage and you shrink it from 8 seconds down to 3 seconds, you literally just did that standing at far range when that target is at 35% or below. And you can see some of that here. I don't want to do too much and then just terminate it. There you see that 9,000. That's tick number 4. I'm going to move into really close range. This is 7 meters. This is 7 meters and under. I'm definitely under 7 meters. And you're going to look at ticks 4 and 6. Ticks 4 and 6 did a damage range of 12,000 to 14,000. At far range, I did a damage range of 9,000. Now I'm going to go to mid-range. This right here should be about mid-range. And you'll see that my damage range changed. It's 11,000 to 10,000. Now, of course, it may slip slightly into 9,000 range, and the 11 might go into the 12,000 range. It'll vary. There's always a damage range, but you get the idea. If you are at 7 meters or under, you will deal the most damage with Photon Blast. And that damage is about, if you take the base and you get an average, right, the base numbers, it's about 100, if I remember right, it's about 125% less damage than the average of paralyzing dart with the advanced mechanic at max far range, and that's at 25 meters. So this power, it did receive a buff in game update 54. However, this is an ability that you might want to take advantage of in if you're scorecard chasing in really low content, and I mean extremely, like where you're overgeared for it. Of course, you could do distract and EMP, but you could also probably use Photon Blast and within 3 seconds get rid of the target. But it depends if you're. It depends on the type of damage that the other players are also inflicting. Of course, if you are comparing the damage registration with this power versus a finisher like Atomics or any of the finishers that received a buff and have their damage vary depending on your their distance, because of the way that those finishers work and because they're 2 ticks and their 2 tick is essentially ours combined, ticks 4 and 6. They're dealing more damage than our finisher can. So you have to consider the fact that while it did receive a buff, again, the damage will range. Now, the Photon Blast is not really used too often at all, because if you compare the damage from Photon Blast, even at close range under 35% health, to the damage of something like EMP, which is significantly more higher, significantly higher, it's just, it blows it out of the water. So there is 7 meters or under, you deal the greatest damage. You do mid-tier damage at 8 meters to 13, and then 14 meters or over 13 meters to 25, sometimes 26. You'll deal the least damage on NPCs or players at 35% health or below.